Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Hidden History. I'm happy you chose to spend these quiet moments here with me. So sit back, relax, and let the story begin.
The year is around 965. In the city of Basra, in modern-day Iraq, a young boy walks beside the river. The sun reflects softly across the water. Merchants shout in busy streets. Camels move slowly through clouds of dust. And everywhere around him, people talk about knowledge. During this period, the Islamic world was becoming one of the greatest centers of learning on earth. Books arrived from Greece, Persia, India, and Egypt. Scientists studied mathematics, medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. Libraries grew larger every year. For young Ibn al-Haytham, this world felt magical. He loved questions. Why do stars move? Why does light change in water? Why do shadows move across walls? Most people simply accepted the world as it was, but not him. He wanted proof, real proof. As he grew older, his mind became famous for its sharpness. He studied mathematics deeply. Numbers fascinated him. Unlike human opinions, numbers could not lie. Years passed, and eventually, news of his intelligence spread across the region. People began to respect him not only as a scholar, but as a thinker who challenged old ideas. And this was dangerous, because in those days, many ancient ideas were treated almost like sacred truth, especially the ideas of the famous Greek philosophers. One of them was a man named Ptolemy. For centuries, people believed his theories about vision. Many thought the human eye sent invisible rays outward, like tiny beams touching objects. That, they believed, was how humans could see. But Ibn al-Haytham felt something was wrong. Late at night, he sat alone thinking about this mystery. If light comes from the eyes, why is bright sunlight hurt them? Why is it impossible to see in darkness? Why do mirrors reflect light? The questions would not leave him, and slowly, a revolutionary idea began forming inside his mind. What if light does not come from the eyes? What if light enters the eyes instead? Today, this sounds obvious, but 1,000 years ago, this idea changed everything, and Ibn al-Haytham was determined to prove it. Not with guesses, not with philosophy alone, but with experiments. Careful experiments. This was extremely unusual for his time. Many scholars simply debated ideas using logic and argument, but Ibn al-Haytham wanted observation, testing, evidence. Again and again he experimented with light. He studied reflections in mirrors. He watched sunlight pass through water and glass. He observed shadows moving across rooms. And slowly, the truth became clearer. Light traveled from objects into the eyes, not the other way around. It sounds simple now, but this discovery helped build the foundation of modern optics. Optics is the science of light and vision. Without it, there would be no cameras, no microscopes, no telescopes, no modern photography, no glasses helping millions of people see clearly. But Ibn al-Haytham's journey was only beginning, because soon his life would take a dramatic and dangerous turn. Far away in Egypt, a powerful ruler heard about the brilliant scientist from Basra. His name was al-Hakim bi-Amr Allah, and he ruled Cairo with absolute power. People feared him. Some called him unpredictable. Others called him cruel. One day, al-Hakim heard rumors that Ibn al-Haytham believed he could control the flooding of the Nile River. The Nile was the lifeblood of Egypt. Too much flooding destroyed homes. Too little flooding caused famine. For centuries, rulers dreamed of controlling it, And now the Caliph summoned Ibn al-Haytham to Cairo. The journey was long. Hot desert winds followed him across the land, and when he finally arrived in Cairo, he entered one of the greatest cities in the world. Massive mosques rose into the sky. Markets overflowed with spices and silk. The smell of bread, animals, and smoke filled the streets. But behind the beauty, there was fear, because nobody wanted to disappoint the Caliph. Still, Ibn al-Haytham traveled south along the Nile to study the river carefully. He examined the landscape, the water flow, the surrounding mountains, and eventually he realized the terrible truth: the project was impossible, at least with the technology of his time. There was no safe way to control the Nile as the Caliph desired. And now he faced an impossible situation: tell the truth and risk the anger of a dangerous ruler, or lie and face disaster later. Many stories say that Ibn al-Haytham became so afraid he pretended to be insane. Madness in that time could protect a person from execution. So instead of killing him, the Caliph placed him under house arrest. And strangely, this punishment may have changed history forever. Inside his confinement, Ibn al-Haytham finally had something rare: silence, time, freedom from politics. And during these years, he produced some of the most important scientific work in human history. Night after night, his lamp burned deep into the darkness. He wrote constantly, studied constantly, experimented constantly. One of his greatest works became known as the Book of Optics. Inside these pages, he explained how vision truly works, how light reflects, how shadows behave, how lenses change images, how human perception sometimes fool the mind. He even studied optical illusions, and perhaps most importantly, he described a method that sounds very familiar today: observe carefully, create a hypothesis, test it through experiment, repeat, verify results. In other words, the scientific method. Centuries before the European Renaissance, Ibn al-Haytham was already practicing a form of modern science: not blind belief, not simple argument, but evidence. This idea would eventually influence scientists across the world, including thinkers in Europe hundreds of years later. Men like Johannes Kepler, Galileo Galilei, and even Isaac Newton. But during his own lifetime, Ibn al-Haytham could not know how far his ideas would travel. He was simply searching for truth, quietly, patiently, one experiment at a time. Imagine him there at night, the room silent except for scratching ink and distant city sounds, a small beam of light entering through a hole in the wall, dust floating slowly through the air, and a man watching carefully, seeing something nobody before him truly understood. Sometimes the greatest revolutions do not begin with armies or kings or wars. Sometimes they begin with a single person sitting alone in the dark, asking questions nobody else is asking. And maybe years later, after the death of the Caliph, Ibn al-Haytham regained his freedom, but by then, his ideas were already spreading. Students copied his writings by hand. Scholars carried them across cities and continents. Generation after generation studied his work. And yet, today, many people outside the Middle East have never heard his name. History can be strange like that. Some voices become famous. Others quietly disappear into the shadows. But their discoveries remain all around us. Every time light passes through a camera lens, every time a telescope explores distant galaxies, every time a child puts on glasses and sees clearly for the first time, a small part of Ibn al-Haytham's legacy is still alive. And maybe that is the most beautiful part of this story. He was not searching for fame. He was searching for understanding. In a world filled with noise, he chose observation. In a world filled with certainty, he chose questions. And perhaps that is why his story still matters today. Because we also live in a world full of opinions, full of loud voices, full of people claiming they already know the truth. But Ibn al-Haytham reminds us of something powerful. Real wisdom begins with curiosity, with patience, with the courage to say, "I do not know yet." Maybe tonight, somewhere in the world, another young person is sitting quietly beside a light, asking questions nobody else is asking. And maybe that curiosity will change the future too. Thank you for joining me on this journey through hidden history. If this story moved you, tell me in the comments which historical figure you would like to explore next. And if you enjoy calm cinematic stories like this one, please subscribe to Hidden History English. Until next time, keep wondering, keep learning, and never stop asking questions.